special occasion.
For who they call their son now.
Destiny impatient. Coming up, coming up. I feel the rush. If this ain't legendary, what you call it? I said if this ain't legendary, what you call it? Feel the vibe, feel the vibe. Extra mile, and I don't need improvement. Fell asleep, a man woke up superhuman.
The road to finals begins today as we kick off the 2017 Spring Playoffs. Here we've got plenty of energy in the crowd today, kicking off the playoffs right as all of these teams are fighting for their road to the finals. Here we got Phoenix 1 making their way into the studio just moments ago. They're, of course, the 3 seed going up against the 6 seed in Dignitas, who are on quite a run there at the end of the split. We'll see if they can upset Phoenix 1 here in our first match of the playoffs. Some cosplayers in the crowd love to see that kind of fandom and energy. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to North American LCS. I'm James Dash Patterson along with Sam, Kobe Hartman, Kenzler, and William Scar Lee. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing great, man.
Yeah, you guys excited for playoffs?
I am. I'm glad that we also got our own mics as well. We can control our own destiny.
Yeah, it means I can't mute you. I can't kick you off or shut you up. How about that 5-game series, though, over in EU LCS?
I actually watched it because Power Evil actually is a monster. He hard carried that last game.
Absolutely a monster. Hoping to get some competitive series here as well.
I was going to say, do you love that new LeBlanc after everyone thought she was dead from the nerfs and comes back with a gunblade?
I actually thought she was dead, but then apparently they found a way to resurrect her. She doesn't even need damage to her W now.
Oh, just I want to see that champion gone forever. All right, we got to get some business out of the way. No, shush. Before we get to our series today, first up, ballots are in for the all-NALCS team. First team is in the top lane. We've got Hanser, followed by Lyra in the jungle. Bjergsen in that mid lane, no stranger to that position. Arrow picking up the ADC, and Smoothie on support. So, gentlemen, thoughts on these 5 players here across the board?
Smart people picked those ones. Those are actually all the ones I went for.
Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, congratulations. Let's talk about Lyra. That's the person I want to talk about the most because first in his position, 10th team in the league. That is a very rare thing to see.
Honestly, this guy deserves it. He is a monster player. A lot of the games, Envy takes every team to 3 games. And a lot of it is because Lyra sets him up with the best early game in the league, almost.
Definitely, and you can just look at some of the individual plays that he has pulled off throughout the season. The mechanics on that guy, extremely impressive, so definitely deserves it.
What about Smoothie? When we look at supports and when we look at, the fact that last year he was sharing time on the Rift with Bunny Fufu, this time around comes in, owns that role, and really helps drive C9 to some sweet victories.
This guy has just bloomed into the best all-around support. I think this one was really close to being unanimous. Smoothie has done so many different things so well this season. I mean, laning phase, roaming, he does whatever the team needs for him, and he's had a really high impact as far as support players go.
Yeah, and I love his champion versatility. He's one of the first people to pick Taric and the Malzahar as a counter pick. He's someone who you never think is a weak link in the team, and on top of that, he shot calls, and that's such a valuable trait to have in the support.
Stepping up in the shot calling role as Meteos leaves the team and a rookie jungler comes in. So big props to Smoothie for his performances this year. Time now, though, to take a look at the roadmap to the championship here in North American LCS. The number 6 seed team Dignitas will be playing against the number 3 seed Phoenix 1 today. Of course, tomorrow we have CLG versus FlyQuest. Now, due to dynamic seeding in the semifinals, TSM will play versus the lower seed that qualifies into the semifinals, while C9 plays against the higher seed, but that's still to come. Of course, in the North American LCS Spring Split, you're fighting for not only the title of champions, but also championship points. They are crucial to your qualification to Worlds come September time. So here we go. First place, 90 points, all the way down to 0, of course, for 7th through 10th. But every single position that you can snag, every round further you go, that much more important towards getting yourself to Worlds later in the year.
Yeah, and we've seen those be important in years past, High, Cloud9 specifically, running that gauntlet. And we'll see if you can rack them up in spring. This can come in handy come around summer.
Yeah, but the players aren't going in the games being like, oh my God.
My championship points.
If I win this game, I get 20 more championship points. It's like, I just want to smash the other team. Like, I'm sure both these teams behind me right now are just thinking about how did they get the win.
Right, you want the W, the championship points are the byproduct, the lovely byproduct. All right, well, today's series, Phoenix 1 Dignitas, let's zero in on it because I would say that the 3-6 matchup, this is not necessarily as disparate as you might expect in terms of seed to seed.
Yeah, a lot of people, because of the way that the season ended, where Phoenix won, they went against Cloud9 and TSM at the end, so they looked a little bit weaker. You know, they were struggling a little bit. The support players subbing in and out also threw a lot of, took away from a lot of people's confidence in the team. I still think they do look pretty strong, and Team Dignitas as well, on the rise at the end of their
Well,
split.
and I think that's the big thing there. Dignitas, the 6th seed. We've got some words from Laud that we're going to share with you in just a moment, talking about how he himself not afraid of the 3 seed, not necessarily looking at this as an underdog matchup. Take a look.
I don't really have that much to say about P1. They're not even really a blip on my radar. I'm just trying to get through them, make it to Vancouver real quick. And I think they'll be pretty easy to beat, actually. I think we're going to slay them. I'm confident going into that series. I actually wanted to play against P1. I mean, it wouldn't have been bad to play against FlyQuest or CLG, but I think it would feel better to take out like the top seed that doesn't have a bye like right off the bat.
I mean, that's some strong language coming out of Laud there going into a 5-game series, especially when you consider the fact that he's going up against Arrow, first all-team NALCS in the ADC position here in the bot lane. Of course, Arrow did have kind of a lackluster Week 9 and might be looking to have a bit of a resurgence here at the beginning of the playoffs.
I mean, the number one thing you have to have when you're playing is confidence. And I'm glad to see that he's very confident about the match. And I think he should be. You know, they used to be tied for 10th place in the league. Where are they now? They snuck in at 6th from like a crazy swing on the back half of the season.
Yeah, plus, I mean, we talked about it a little bit already, but the recent play from these guys, a lot of the members have stepped up. I mean, Chaser was blasting contracts in their Cloud9 games. Keen is playing a lot better as well. Some of the people that you didn't necessarily first look to on Team Dignitas, like Someday for carry performances, are playing a lot better for the team. Plus, I always like the NA trend of more trash talking that people have been doing. Started in a jungle, it's bleeding over to other roles.
I love it. I like fire everywhere, just people spitting fire. But let's talk about Arrow specifically, because do you guys believe that he will return to form, or rather their entire bot lane will return to form? Because we know that they do have both supports that they've been kind of trying out here in the later weeks of the season.
Yeah, I actually got to talk a little bit to history teacher, I think his analyst or GM or something. He's not exactly coach, because Fly is coach of the team, but he talked a little bit about what they were going through with all the substitutions, jungle role as well as support role. He didn't want to give away very much information, though. He said, both supports synergize with Arrow in different ways. Also, who's starting today is due to the champions that they were running in the couple of weeks leading up to this. So I'm very curious, because Shady was the one with Brand and Vel'Koz are two of his most played supports. So hopefully we get to see some crazy picks.
I mean, the way that I see it is that P1's bot lane has never been great in lane. Like, they're like a passable bot lane that like does well. And then where Arrow really shines is like out of lane phase, this guy's a monster. He's like the best team fighter in the league. He gets so much impact regardless how much gold he gets. And he played against C9 last week. They had probably the best bot lane duo in the league, and they got abused. This new meta where laning is more important is something that could be a little bit of a hole for P1 in general. If they can exploit it, though, I don't know.
Yeah, and actually on the laning point, Arrow, although he's kind of middle of the table as far as the laning stats, like the CS per minute and CSD at 15, those get better for him versus Laud compared to his averages against the entire league. So maybe in that specific matchup, they might actually even do better.
Another specific matchup that I want to take a look at is the top lane. Again, we've got Someday along with Looper, for example, these Korean imports that came in with great expectations as to how they would raise the bar and the competition in the top lane. Of course, Zig's on the other side of that matchup, homegrown NA talent, but he really has stepped up. How do you guys look at this matchup between Zig and Someday?
I really like watching Zig play, and I'm glad that we're starting that out with his Kled play, because he was, the first guy to really bring the Kled into the professional scene here in North America. He's provided whatever the team needs at the time. He plays tanks, he plays initiators, he plays carry top laners, and he's done a lot of team-oriented play.
Yeah, I feel like although his stats look a little bit bad, he takes a lot of stuff for the team. Like, he takes a lot of ganks. He tends to give up a lot of his lane to make sure his team gets ahead. He is probably one of the best role-specific players in the LCS, and he's up against Someday, which is like a huge carry threat, but like his team also needs him to be. Whereas I feel like Zig does his role just as well, but in like a different way.
Exactly, and he doesn't really require as much jungle attention as Someday does. Like, Someday and Chaser are very close, and Chaser spends a lot of time up there to help out with those lane stats you can see.
All right, so given what you guys just pointed out, within this particular lane matchup, the 1v1, who do you give the edge to, Zig or Someday?
As much as I do love Zig, you know, and team players, if we're just looking at the 1v1 matchup here, I got to give it to Someday. He has just pulled out some plays that I couldn't see, you know, Zig being able to pull off, even though Someday has also had, you know, some Kled ultimates into the enemy team a little bit too deep and a couple of misplays. Overall, I think definitely give the edge to Someday.
I think Someday is like a better skilled player overall, but a lot of, I think, Zig's ability to adapt, and like he has very specific pocket counter picks, like his GP into tanks. He has his Kled into tanks as well. He's just a player which I don't know will be fully unlocked depending on what jungler they use. So like, while I like to focus on the 1v1 as well, and I'm here to say that I think Someday is a better player, I think how good Zig will be will also rely a lot about which jungler they use, because Meteos can play frontline a lot more than Inori, and so if he does get to play frontline, you get to see all these top lane counter picks from Zig that are a lot better.
All right, well, an edge to Someday in lane, but as you mentioned, it's a team game. So now let's expand it. Who's coming away with the series? Prediction here.
I think it's P1. And the biggest problem I had for P1 was that their bot lane laning phase, it doesn't look great. And I'll give it to them. I think they're like middle of the pack or maybe even worse. But I also think that Dig's bot lane hasn't been impressive. Even in their wins, throughout the season, they've been like, what, a bottom 3 bot lane? And I'm waiting to be proved wrong. And so if they can exploit this, what I consider to be like fairly big weakness in P1, they have to do it this series. And if they don't, then it's entirely relied on if Chaser can perform super well.
All right, so Phoenix won here. Kobe, what are you going?
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Phoenix 1. My reasoning was more about late game decision making. I'm very sketchy as far as Team Dignitas. You're always a little bit worried in the best of 5 scenarios. You know, how many times is the Baron thing that comes up? You know, which people want to skirt around the issue, but like, how many times in a best of 5 does the pressure build up with all these late game decisions that they do have to make? And Phoenix 1 throughout the regular split, that was actually one of their strengths that we were looking to. Maybe that gets shifted around since Adrian left and they've got these rookies though. So that's why I think it is going to be pretty close here. And Team Dignitas definitely do have a good chance.
Final thoughts.
I'm just saying the Dig Baron was like, when I still played, this
happened.
Roster number 6 for them. I don't think the curse follows, you know? I think it's okay, you know? I mean, I hope the series
You don't think the
close.
curse follows, but you still voted for Phoenix 1.
Oh,
so.
Right, but I think it's not based on the fact that they throw a Baron.
I got you. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to know from you at home, who do you think will be in the finals of the Spring Split and why? So not winning this series here today, we want your projection all the way to the finals. Make sure to tweet at LOL Esports and use the hashtag NALCS. For now, though, that's enough out of us. Time to get into game, so let's toss it over to the casters for this first series.
Thank you, Dash. I'm Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, and helping me usher in playoffs are Joshua Jatt Leesman and Aiden Zyrene Moon. Gentlemen, are you ready?
Yeah, it's about time. I mean, I was happy to see it go to 5 games. Reverse sweeps are always cool, but I really came here today for this series.
Absolutely. Zyrene?
Absolutely.
You ready?
In rehearsal, you were like, are you guys ready to match my energy? I'm like, I don't know about that, because it's the Captain Flowers in playoffs, so I want to see that energy today.
Oh, this is going to be fun, because our first quarterfinal match today locks Phoenix 1 against Team Dignitas on Summoner's Rift. And despite coming in as the number 3 seed, there was a lot of uncertainty around Phoenix 1 because of their recent roster swaps in both the jungle and support positions.
Yeah, and this team did have a very poor week 5, which is another thing that you have to consider coming into this being a little bit closer here up against Dignitas. And today they've announced that they're actually starting Inori in the jungle and Stunt in the support position, but have Meteos and Shady both available as subs throughout the best of 5 series.
Yeah, Phoenix 1 even released a feature that you can find. I found it through their Twitter account about how Inori's been working hard and trying to learn from what he hadn't played in the middle of the split. With that being said, they were 12-10 with Inori. They had a better record with Meteos. The nice thing for them is that the 9 games Stunt has played, he's been 8-1 in those. So I think Stunt has easily been the highest performing support they've had as far as game wins, and that's the lineup they're going with today.
And it feels as though there's quite a lot of pressure on the players of Phoenix 1 coming into the match, but towards the end of the split, we actually saw Team Dignitas as a squad in really high spirits.
Yeah, after their game with Immortals that landed them into the playoffs, Xpecial said that despite the sloppiness of that match, he was incredibly confident in Team Dignitas' ability to improve in these 2 weeks that they had before this match, citing that they had that late season impressive surge because of Cop.
Yeah, and so much of it is about the teamwork. The question becomes, which of the players will be able to step up in the postseason? During the regular season, early on, it was all about Someday, and he was performing well in almost every game, but they started 1-7. The team actually gets the wins when others step up, and the 2 other carries on this team are Keen and Laud, who haven't necessarily had playoff success before. They're the ones that are going to have to pull Team Dignitas to victory if they're going to make it to semifinals.
Let's go ahead and pull up those starting rosters now to see who's going to be playing today. On the blue side, it's Team Dignitas, with Someday in the top lane, Chaser in the jungle, Keen mid, Lodge bottom, Xpecial supporting him, and the process himself, Coach Cal.
He absolutely loves that nickname. But of course, on the red side, opting in for red side in game 1 will be Phoenix 1. In the top lane, it's Zig. Jungle, they will be starting Inori. Mid lane, Ryu. Bot lane, Arrow. And support Stunt with Coach Fly.
Now, gentlemen, they kind of covered it in the introduction to this game, but sometimes you head into playoffs, you head into these quarterfinals with a 3rd versus 6th place match, and it feels a little bit lopsided. It feels like you're expecting some sort of a stomp, but this series is not one of those types of situations.
Yeah, we did see double Phoenix 1 predictions on the desk. There is a reason they are the number 3 seed, but because of the upward trajectory for Team Dignitas in the second half of the split, you have to remember in the regular season, we're effectively playing a double round robin. If you look at the second half of this round robin, these teams' rosters are almost identical with who they've beaten and who they've lost to.
Exactly. They are actually both 7-3 in their last 10 matches, so they had the identical second half of the split coming into that week 5 and onward.
Well, let's see what they decide to do during the drafting phase, the picks and the bans, as we are now into Champion Select for game number 1. First ban's going to be LeBlanc from Dig, Phoenix 1, answering by taking Lee Sin off the table.
Yeah, Lee Sin, Chaser's most played champion. I'm expecting a possible Camille from Phoenix 1 and a Graves, because they have not played either of those champions at all throughout the split.
Kha'Zix instead. Still thinking about the jungle, just a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Kha'Zix was by far Nori's most played champion. So even though there have been substantial nerfs since then, that is still a smart ban as far as hitting his comfort early on.
Yeah, and if Phoenix 1 start banning out the Graves and the Camille here to take away from Chaser and Someday, that will leave Rengar and Lulu both up, and then you get one of those. And remember, Inori, he loves playing the Kha'Zix as most played, but it's mostly because he can't get his hands on Rengar every game.
A little bit hard to always get the champion that you're known for causing a lot of havoc with. Rengar is going to be banned away along with Kha'Zix. Graves also banned. So many jungle bans this game.
Exactly. Already for potentially a 5th on the way, although I feel like the Lulu ban will be what you want to throw in here to keep it away from Xpecial. This will push Inori into his champion pool as well as Chaser.
Have to see what Phoenix 1 decides to actually go with here, considering that first pick will go over to Dignitas, and that's going to be 5 out of 6 jungle bans.
Probably Elise here. Or sorry, probably the Lulu here.
Yeah, Lulu, Malzahar's still on the table as well. So you can pick that and have a good support on the other side for Phoenix 1. It's why they didn't go for the Lulu ban, because then Malzahar is probably first picked in that case.
Yeah, this also opens the door for things like Kog'Maw, which have seen some resurgence, not as much in pro play, but definitely when paired with Lulu can become pretty ridiculous.
We did actually see a Kog'Maw picked up in the Brazilian CBLOL finals earlier today. So there is some Kog'Maw out there.
Yeah.
There is some Kog'Maw, you never know.
And this is funny too, because you talked about the Kog'Maw. Great thing to have alongside that is the Ivern. I know Inori, last time we had really seen him before Meteos came in, he had played the Ivern, and it's locked in now.
Smart.
Might be going for it.
So I like this. When Phoenix 1 bans the 3 junglers, they're building into the jungle pinch. And even though Inori's Ivern wasn't good, I personally still think Ivern is a ridiculous champion, especially if you want to start pairing it with a hyper carry or with strong lanes. You get level 6 on Ivern, you walk into a strong lane, you press your ultimate, you take the turret.
And I checked his solo queue. He's been playing it a lot, and this might be a bit of a redemption game for him, because when he last played Ivern, it was the game right before they brought in Meteos. He had a lot of issues, and the mentality of the team went down completely. So he playing the Ivern, it's kind of confidence for the team now, saying he can bring it back.
Yeah, we also have to point out that Phoenix 1 had side selection for game 1 as the higher seed, and they opted for red side. So knowing that they could have a triple jungler ban, knowing that they could get the Lulu first pick, since that's what all the other teams do, to me, this looks like the draft is going as planned for Phoenix 1.
This could all be playing into their hands, going for that redemption that you talked about for Inori. Kind of, it was a bad note getting the Ivern as the final game that he played for a while before Meteos came in, but what can he do against Chaser's Nidalee? That will be the question, as that is locked in on the side of Dignitas.
Both farm incredibly easily.
Yeah, I think that Ivern is a pretty good matchup into Nidalee personally. It's a champion that won't necessarily be able to assassinate through the Ivern shield. Also, if Nidalee is jumping in, it makes a very easy land for your root caller, which then blows up the Nidalee. So with 6 junglers off the table, I maybe would have wanted to see Chaser go with something like Olaf to pair with the Lulu, but instead he goes with the Nidalee, who's a much squishier, riskier option.
80 carries, both also locked in for the teams. Ezreal versus Ashe, and then Zyra, the final pick in this first part of the picking phase for Phoenix 1. So the picks are going to be matched and mirrored. Bottom lanes and junglers, expect solo lane focus here in the bans.
Yeah. And Phoenix 1, they're actually having a Ashe Zyra bottom lane. A lot of engage here. There's a lot of potential for this bottom lane to make plays, bring the Ivern in early game as well. Whereas Team Dignitas, a little bit of looking for that scaling, looking for a little bit later in the game, because that's not as much as a bully lane. They're going to start taking a few CS loss.
Yeah, a lot of it will be the early jungle clear from Nidalee, but so much of this will be then dictated by the solo lane. So we've talked about the Zig versus Someday matchup. We've also seen Zig have so much success on Kled and get some bans against it later on into the split. We've even seen Kled played against him. However, on red side, we mentioned the second half of the draft is heavily favored for them. Not only do they get the first pick on the second half, they'll also get the last. So plenty of opportunities to either pick a power pick like Kled or get as a counter.
Yeah, and you can do things here like ban out counters to what you really want to first pick here, because Shen is still up. You can have another shield for somebody that's hyper carrying and becomes a very defensive composition. Or you can go for something like delaying it and go for a GP. We'll see.
Two different fighter-style top laners banned away by Phoenix 1, trying to keep Someday away from that carry potential. Orianna and Ahri banned away by Team Dignitas, really targeting Ryu in the second part of the bans. Now Phoenix 1 expecting to see a top lane pick here, leaving that counter pick option potentially open. Or maybe they leave it there to give a better matchup to Zig.
Yeah, NALCS is Someday's most played champion right now. That might be a takeaway. Also, kind of expecting a Cassiopeia with the Orianna banned out would also be another option for these teams. And Cassio is Keen's most played champion.
Yeah, it's very CC and utility focused so far from Phoenix 1. No one will move when they can start an initiation in these team fights between Depth Charge and Ashe Arrow and Ivern, Root Caller, and Zyra. What they'll need as a last pick is something that can bring a lot of damage. So that's why I kind of like if Someday does go with Shen, because there is a low amount of damage. Being able to stack up some of those shields between Lulu and Shen is smart.
Yeah, Lulu and Shen together can create a very effective VIP protection duty type of a composition. Keep somebody alive. That CC is going to keep them there for a long time, but that doesn't actually make your screen turn gray.
Yeah, and going to the other side here with Dignitas locking in the Shen and Cassiopeia, I feel like Phoenix 1 would like a Cassiopeia in this comp because it's consistent damage that you can protect and keep alive. This also means that Dignitas, you can't really pick Vladimir into this because it's a huge counter to it. The Cassiopeia would be able to beat him in lane and it'd be harder to get out. So they are going to go with assassination potential here instead.
Full pick comp is what you see here. Pretty much everyone can land a skill shot to set up a play, and then everyone can pile on with their chain CC. It's rare you see this much CC in a team comp.
Yep, but then you jump over to the other side. There's so much CC for Phoenix 1, but there's a lot of protection for Dignitas as well. They have a heal, they have a shield, and then they have Lulu on top of that. So picking somebody off when they're grouped up is going to be very difficult.
Yeah, they're going to have to make sure that they're playing this together very synergistically, very much as a team, because if you only have one or two people there on the side of Phoenix 1, the damage is not going to come out. It doesn't matter if they're locked down for 4 seconds. If you've only got an Ivern and a Nautilus there, nothing's going to come up. Phoenix 1 has to make sure that they're working together, being that kind of team that, like we talked about, both these teams 7-3 in the second half of the split. So Phoenix 1, of course, incurring those losses there towards the end. We talked about how Week 9 looked a little bit rough from them. For their sake, you've got to hope they're back in form.
Look at this right now, getting a preview of the late
goodness.
matchups. Graphics team's been using the prep time pretty well.
Graphics team is on point for the playoffs today in Spring Split 2017. Dignitas versus Phoenix 1, game 1 of a potential 5 to decide which one of these two teams will get to move on to the semifinals, try to punch that ticket for Vancouver.
Remember, if you make the semifinals, you are guaranteed a spot in Vancouver, whether it's 3rd or 4th place or finals, and there's a lot of Canadians in this matchup here that really want to go.
Yeah, go back to the home field, go back, represent yourself, show how far you've come, and just bring the whole team with you.
Yeah, but let's be honest, it's cool to go to Vancouver, but the guys playing in the 3rd or 4th place match would much rather be playing
They'd
in the
much
finals.
rather be in there for that championship.
Long road for these guys as well, though. They have to win this just to make it to the semifinals, whether they'll play up against TSM or Cloud9, and so much of it does revolve around this matchup.
Absolutely does. These two teams both looking to prove that they are a serious contender for the potential of that first place spot, as Dignitas is deciding to move as a full 5-man squad into the bottom lane.
Yeah, this is something you see fairly often against Zyra, and you wonder if Stunt will fall for something like this since he is still a rookie in a higher pressure situation. A lot of times Zyra will want to push up in the lane just to get the seeds to spawn in that lane, and you're kind of trying to bait him into bullying off one person. Doesn't look like the bait has been fallen for, and he's still even getting plant spawns because he was patient and Team Dignitas has called off the play. Although, what's funny is if they would have been patient, that would have been a dead stunt. They could have taunted him with Someday if they'd stuck around in range.
Just a little bit too early on the back off. Didn't want to commit to it that hard.
Yeah, usually you'll stick around and then like 1 minute, 20 seconds is kind of your cutoff. So they could have been there until then.
Yeah, I'm actually a little disappointed in Team Dignitas for not sticking through on that.
If you're going to go cheese, you got to go full cheese.
Yeah, you do have to worry, though, that if they do that, your top side gets warded and you don't know where the wards are, and then Ivern and cheese could come through. There's always possibilities around these types of things.
It's the worst thing when your cheese gets cheesed.
Yeah, if you're going to be running down there anyway, you're already vulnerable to wards. So to do it for that long and then pull off is a mixed call where it's not going to work either way. So disagree with that, but no actual repercussions for Team Dignitas early on.
Both junglers going to be starting on their blues this time around, so they'll end up on opposite ends of the map. Nori, we know that Ivern has the ability to be very effective at stealing away enemy camps as well, so we'll have to keep an eye on exactly what he's able to do this game.
Yeah, Honori's actually gone with pretty much the most conservative jungle start on Ivern. A lot of times you will channel on a blue buff as well as a regular camp, run to a next buff, and smite it immediately before circling back. Honori smited his initial blue, so he actually has to wait for his smite cooldown to come back up now before he could take anything else. So an incredibly conservative start for Honori.
Yeah, considering the last time he played Ivern, went for an invade, got killed, and the game snowballed from there against Svenskeren. I really don't blame him at all for going for a conservative start here.
You see the hawk shot there, fired off by Arrow, going to be spotting out Chaser as he moves towards his own red. Help P1 kind of keep an eye on what he's doing there, and the fan vote shows up with nearly 3/5 of fans voting for Phoenix 1 to walk away with a win here. Ryu eats some Twin Fang damage, but Keen doesn't really have the mana to make that go any further.
Looks like Keen spammed out just trying to get harass onto Ryu early. You can see Ryu has already gobbled down both of his potions, so a little bit of success, but Keen has nothing left, and since the Nidalee's not ganking, he's just going to be pushed in for a bit.
Nidalee's one of those champions you do expect to see some early presence from.
This is the benefit of Honori's start, though, is the full clear at 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Only champion who can do it this fast, going for a gank.
Put him top side, flash away from Someday to keep himself safe. But now with that summoner spell down, he might be that much juicier of a target for a return gank from Honori.
Yeah, but now Honori goes into the jungle, will clear plants, ward it up, and go for a scuttle crab here, most likely. And then we'll have even more control of this river in top half.
And we like seeing Honori getting involved a little bit in top side. It helps keep that extra power that Someday has in the lane, those stat advantages that you saw that he has over Zig under control a little bit more.
Yeah, Zig actually has the lowest jungle proximity out of all top laners in the entire league. He barely gets any attention, but there's an attention bot. Stun, got hit.
Bear, Stunt gonna be in some trouble here, flashing away. The damage comes through. First blood goes through. Now Dignitas having to try to get themselves away from this one. Dig looking to find that counterattack. Now can they get Zig? Taunted back into the fight, and he is gonna drop Dignitas with a 2-0 lead.
Super surprised that Zig completed that teleport, knowing that it was going to be matched by Someday. That adds insult to injury on top of First Blood, because now they have effectively lost 2 lanes early on in the game.
Yeah, as soon as Honori went top, they start making a play down bottom, and Arrow and Stunt, we'd have to see how that started off, because they were shoved up like you would expect that lane to be with the Zyra, but Stunt doesn't flash the initial spear when it's going to connect, and that costs him his life.
The damage absolutely intense from the side of Dignitas in that early play. Keen and Ryu. Yeah, Ryu's going to be tagged by some miasma, but still getting himself back. Has a Nori nearby. I don't think Keen's going to be taking that bait anytime soon, though. Plenty comfortable with what his team got.
He does walk in a bit.
But now he's in trouble as the Nori doesn't manage to get the setup he needs.
He was trying to flash Q off of the Cinder stun, but the Q went face first into a minion. Now he's getting attacked by Chaser.
Chaser flexing those muscles that Nidalee has in dueling scenarios, recognizing that, hey, there might be an Ivern symbol on this crab, but he can steal it away anyway.
So this is a spectacular start for Team Dignitas, and you have to wonder how well they're going to be able to transition this. The team play and the coordination is something they completely lacked early on in the season, but improved upon as the split progressed. So early leads like this against a team that is so pick-based and so CC-based, if they can get that larger lead, hit level 6 on the Lulu, and start living off of that Shen cooldown, it'll be very difficult for P1 to generate picks.
How do you kill someone through a Wild Growth and a Stand United and a Help Picks and Nidalee Heals when they are ahead?
Lots of damage.
Even more damage.
Even more damage.
Or just picks when they're not all there. That's the thing, you'd be able to keep them spread out, but we'll have to look into this pass.
Yeah, and we talked about how Dignitas have been playing better towards the second half of the split, and we've been noticing they've had more team cohesion and communication, but it's also, they play really well when they're engaged upon. They play defensively really well. They're actually one of the better teams, and they were, I believe, one of the first teams, if not the first one, to really jump on first pick Lulu blue side, and Xpecial just kept picking that up every time, because the counter was so good. They could just whimsy people when they jumped in, and then you didn't have anything, because the meta was kind of be proactive.
Yeah, it was Arrow who paused. He apparently is having some issues. We'll get more updates with that when it comes. But to continue with that and look again kind of at the team compositions, this would theoretically fit within Team Dignitas' wheelhouse. They have a poke composition with heavy shields and low initiation, and the other team will be coming to them naturally because of all the CC. So it is difficult to actually pull your team through the game with an early lead when you don't have the initiation, but it has been what Team Dignitas has been most successful with.
Yeah, you think about the Lulu, the Tom Kench, it's always get engaged on and then counter, and it's been working really well for them. And it's even like Cassiopeia likes to kite backwards too. This composition is definitely built for those situations.
They're kiting backwards, they've got shields, they've got heals, and let's not forget about the zone control as well. You've got a Miasma, you've got a Spirit's Refuge. There's tools upon tools upon tools for Dignitas to put themselves in a successful position if Phoenix 1 makes even a single misstep in coordinating that initiation that we talked about when we saw them lock in this heavy CC comp.
Yeah, and even if you speak more onto the coordination, you do have to wonder how this Phoenix 1 roster can recover from a bad early game, because you look at the cohesion early on. We're going to watch this one more time, and it's pretty much just you mentioned, Stunt could have flashed this, but then when he got polymorph, he couldn't flash until afterwards, and by that point they've been able to catch up.
Exactly, he has no option at that point. Gets hit,
Nice
can't
peek back.
flash then from the Whimsy. He has to flash in that window, and that's honestly rookie mistake.
Yeah, in the completed TP, yes, Zig may have been able to get a kill onto Chaser, but even then it would have been traded 1-for-1. So not a very odds-on teleport for sure.
And we're talking about nerves, we're talking about rookies here. There's some guys in this that haven't played in the playoffs at all. Zig, Inori, Stunt have not played in a single playoffs.
I mean, how many games have Inori and Stunt played together? By the time Stunt came in, Meteos was in the jungle, and then Inori came in for the last week of the split, and they were playing Shady. So this actual roster has an incredibly small amount of stage time together. And you mentioned that Stunt, even though we're playing best of threes, just 9 games. That's about 4 matches, and maybe some change depending on the way the games fall. And that's it. That's all he has. And now he's going up against Xpecial, who's been playing since the first split of the LCS as far as who would be more impacted by playoff nerves.
Yeah, the nerve situation, those intangible elements of the game that you don't see on Summoner's Rift necessarily in terms of gold or items or kills or anything like that, can actually have such a massive difference when there is kind of that element of doubt.
Yeah, and we've seen actually all 3 of the rookies for playoffs on P1 actually have missteps already. Zig had a misstep, Stunt had a misstep, and Inori with the flash, root collar, point blank into a minion.
And you wonder how this will impact Inori. He's in a very difficult situation now. Ivern is definitely a champion who plays far better from ahead, and I feel like is relatively difficult to play from large deficits. So on top of the fact that he already is being put in above Meteos because they have faith in him, how can he get back into it? He catches Chase.
He's still got one way too. Here comes Ryu.
In some potential trouble. You're going to be ulted for the Thunderlords. Press R, kill champion. Ryu puts himself on the board.
That's how you get back into it right there. You have to make some sort of play. Chaser tried to push his advantage too far, ended up right in a root collar, and that's enough time for the collapse. And Ryu, he wanted to get there post-haste. He blew that ghost so quickly to get the movement speed after 2 seconds.
I mean, yes, it is a good way to get back in the game, but you don't expect to be making a play at your own wolves. Chaser should not have been there. It was already a channeled camp. No turrets are down. That's an incredibly deep counter jungle. Almost gives a gift over, and that should be great for the confidence of Inori in Phoenix 1.
Yeah, Chaser just getting a little bit big for his britches in the enemy jungle that early, but Still an advantage for Team Dignitas by about 1,000 gold overall. CS advantage bottom side for Lod over Arrow. And considering this is one of the matchups that we were talking about, Arrow, all LCS player, top 80 carry in the league, seeing Lod be off to an advantage this early is nice.
Yeah, so much of that with the early gank and play bottom lane. This is going to be a 3v3. They're kind of pinched.
Exactly, flanked by the Nidalee here, but they can collapse on the Nidalee.
Pretty isolated, but Stand United is going to be used. Stunt in some trouble, having to run himself away.
There was an interrupt on Sumday's ultimate there, and that was a triple root from Stunt to stop them from advancing.
Good interrupt from Zig in the top side, making sure Someday couldn't work his way into the fight. You can actually see the ultimate expended by Zig to make that one happen.
Yeah, a lot of ultimates burned there. Nori had also recently hit level 6, so Daisy had a large part in the disruption of that fight. Good on Stunt as well for landing the triple root. Knowing Shenalt is down as well as Nidalee being out of there, Nori's back in the game.
Nori trying to...
Doesn't have Smite yet, but he wants
maybe
to take
steal away that enemy blue. I needed about 7 more seconds to get it instantly.
Yep, Syndra's going to come by and just sit here and wait.
Yeah.
Blue's up, so somebody wants to come over here.
Yeah, a couple benefits they could get here. Depending on how patient they'd want to be, they're hoping to get a pick from Nidalee. Chaser's not going to go by, so they're going to end up just taking double blue.
Drive by on the blue, get buffs on both players. Very useful aspect of Ivern and the fact that they can both pick up that extra power boost.
Yeah,
Daisy's going to disappear for now as Nori continues to lay down those groves, set himself up to come back and farm a little bit later. P1, even though they fell behind a little bit with that play in the bottom side, not exactly the best way to start the game. Not really allowing themselves to fall any further behind so far.
And they're also losing every lane at the moment in CS. Even the mid lane with Ryu versus Keen. He is down right now a decent amount, and Keen is even going to pick up this wave and have almost like a 10 advantage over him.
You would think that it would help that Ryu will have the blue buff and Keen will not, though.
Yeah.
Gonna give him some extra spam power, gonna make Keen have to answer to that. Makes things a little bit difficult.
Yeah, and Ryu has a kill too, so he roamed, he got out of the lane, but just seems like Keen's CSing has just been a little bit better. And across the board too, like this bottom lane, Laud and Special having gotten kills onto Arrow, or onto Stunt, and that bottom lane alongside Arrow. This is a lane that you should really be winning as the Zyra.
I mean, I also got to say, at this point, when you have the tier and the call on the Ezreal, it's really hard to deny the Ezreal CS. He's not necessarily going to hard bully you, but when you're in this situation where Stunt is behind in levels, as well as Anor not having the strongest jungle control in that top side, you can definitely see how Laud and Special have been allowed to push. But 90 CS at 10 minutes is a great start for the Dignitas bot lane.
And he said there's no excuses. If this team, this roster of Dignitas doesn't actually make it all the way, it's a disappointment on his end. There's no external thing for him to blame this split. After he was on Envy and they lost in the quarterfinals, Laud made a big post about how next year it's the try-hard year. And he said that this is where he can't make any excuses.
And even the clip that we heard from him before this series today, he's saying, look, they're not really even on my radar. I mean, we'll beat them. This isn't a problem. I'm not worried.
And then he went on to say a bunch of things about how they are on his radar, and he went to the top.
They're not on my radar, except when they are on my radar, but hey, they're not really that big of a deal anyway. Just trying to show that even when they're on his mind, they're not on his mind.
They're just a blip on the radar. They aren't actually a gigantic threat.
Well, Dignitas hasn't really been able to find any more opportunities, but now, Arrow onto a special follow-up CC gonna be there. Stranglethorns comes out, Special getting himself away. Now Laud having to retreat as well. Dignitas bot lane keeps that support alive.
Special only level 5, hadn't been able to catch up on a lot of that experience. That generally means he's been roaming a bit more than Stunt has. So when Stunt hits level 6, smart of them to go all in at that moment. Didn't get the Ignite off during the combo though, which may have resulted in a kill.
Yeah, so it was kind of a situation where you can't have your cake and eat it too. Special was going to be 6 after that wave, but Stunt was about 10 seconds away from having Ignite. So they had to all in without the Ignite, or else he chooses to all in with it, but Special has Wild Growth by then.
Wild Growth, the health value from that going to be more than you get from the Ignite anyway. So not really an ideal situation waiting on that one. You got to respect P1 for going for that, even if it didn't work out this time around. 1,500 gold lead for Dignitas, slowly making that larger. 112 to 87 CS in that bottom lane. That lead continues to build for a lot as well.
Yeah, it's 1,000 gold over top of Arrow. Ashe and Zyra is a strong lane, but Lulu has always actually been a pretty good pick against Zyra, so they're really wanting some of the intangibles this lane brings. They need to be able to convert that into kills.
And Lod has a cull as well that's about 20 away from completing, so the early pickup of that is really going to help him get even further ahead in this game and get that Ezreal build online. He's not sitting on just the Seer anymore. He's got that Mana Moon.
Yeah, this game in particular will be a test of one of the things we talked about in the pregame. Someday when this team has been good is actually on tanks who then kind of open opportunities for others. He's doing fine on Shen. The carries are going to have to be Laud and Keen. Laud is positioning himself to have a large amount of the team's gold. He's going to have to make that count for them to convert this into victory.
Yeah, and Keen is also just up in CS having a great laning phase from him. Again, he had the flash too.
Might have.
Max range spears
Really
generally
scared
don't
him
need
there.
to be flashed. Max range spears need to be juked, but Stun is getting hit by them here.
Something that was said in EU, if you have a mouse, you shouldn't be able to get hit by those. I remember that from the bot lane stream.
Well, Dragon Control, Phoenix 1 pretty on top of taking those first Drakes as Keen slithers himself forward. Not going to kind of be found out by Inori, but immediately returns fire. Spear connects onto the Ivern as well. True Shot Barrage fired through, won't find anyone.
Yeah, and you keep saying that, Spear connects. Chaser has actually been dialed in on these spears. Had that one blip when he tried to counter Jungle Wolves, but beyond that has had a spectacular early game on Nidalee.
Ryu grabbing his own blue buff after the one that he acquired from the enemy jungle has now dissipated.
Here comes Zig from the top lane, looking for Keen.
Oh, good sidestep coming out from Keen there. He did not have his cleanse available. Remember, he popped it earlier, so if he did get caught out there, he was in a world of hurt. Chaser grabbing his own red buff, just moving on through, farming up whatever he can. Runic Echo's completed, as you saw when he tried to steal away the Infernal Drake that Phoenix 1 got for themselves just a minute ago. And we also saw the stat showing up that Phoenix 1 actually has over 70% first Drake control, so a team that really prioritizes and controls that objective well.
Yeah, some of those stats are, I feel like, a little bit heavily weighted towards the Meteos games, who was making Drake one of his primary concerns since he was a less proactive jungler from a game perspective, but was strong in the objective control. Good to see them able to get that first one here with Inori.
And you're talking about how Inori, not as objective focused, but more about getting those ganks off. He's the highest damage per minute jungler in the whole league, and also the highest kill participation in the whole league. So you expect him to be a part of these kills, but you don't really expect him to play something like Ivern, which is when the first time he played it, it was so unusual that he was playing it because Kha'Zix was right up his alley. And he's gone back to it now, so Inori, we're seeing a little bit more objective focus from him. Maybe he's learned a few things from Meteos.
It does feel strange to see the highest damage jungler in the league playing something that is essentially a support in the jungle.
Yeah, and Inori's been pretty vocal about how he's watched Meteos and learned a lot from him, and just even communication-wise and objective-wise, this guy knows the game so well that why not actually learn from him? So we're seeing a little bit of that as a result here.
Dignitas thinking about maybe making some kind of a move down here on bottom yet again. Chaser dropping some wards down. Just gets himself out.
Yeah, turret's already half HP from the bottom lane pushing in, so this looks like you just do a standard, bring your mid laner and jungler down here for a roam. You'll get the first turret faster. They aren't going to bring Keen, though. Keen is just sitting in lane, CSing.
Phoenix 1's in a difficult position right here because they are a pick composition which is behind in the game against a Shen who has ultimate. So a lot of little twitchy on that flash, had already juked the arrow with his arcane shift, but even if that had landed, you have to wonder if he'd be able to stay alive. Now he stays up here without flash.
Now he gets himself out of the way. Another arcane shift going to be used nicely. Spear comes in. Xpecial going to be soaking some damage. Laud gets himself ignited by stun, but gets out.
And these are always crazy situations, too, because if you watch the minimap, Someday's running away trying to look for a Stand United position, and he's got one right now.
Now Arrow on the counterattack after Laud jumps in. True Shot Barrage is going to be used. Stand United comes out. Arrow's going to be dropped down first. Laud still being chased as Daisy smashes him right down into the dirt. But Inori's in a spot where I don't think he's getting away anytime soon. Chaser and Xpecial with the damage.
And it really feels like Phoenix 1 is pressing here. Instead of just trying to wait for the game to come to them, they have all these CC tools, so they consistently try and use them. They were able to interrupt the Shen ultimate, but that doesn't stop the shield. And the shield is still like a 3.5 v3 when they have that bottom lane fight on top of the gold disadvantage they're already facing.
And it feels like they're not just taking those tiny leads. They got the flash from Laud. Stunt says immediately punish it, immediately run up and try to get a root. and then they counter on Dignitas' side. Instead of waiting for a better setup, waiting for making sure Chaser isn't around, etc., it just seems like you said, they're forcing so hard. Right here, Arrow, this is after they had already gotten the flash out.
Yeah, and he's now completely out of summer spells, but even Inori decides to flash in to try and secure this kill. Yes, the ultimate is interrupted, but what's actually going to happen? Ryu actually stays bottom, going for Laud, knows he's out of summoners.
Laud trying to play up against this.
Outplayed.
I don't think you're outplaying anything when he's got that many balls on the ground.
At least he landed a Q.
At least he landed the Q.
More than R.
He got an E, he got a Q. He wasn't completely the old.
All of the spells.
And I like this too. They swapped it up. What they did is they brought their mid laner to the bottom in a switcheroo here. They're going to put their bottom lane in mid and start pushing with that. So now they have reverse turret pressure where you were just... If the same thing is happening over and over again in a 2-on-2, go for a quick switch up, try to get something else. Maybe it's some turret damage here or there, but then the enemy, they answer by doing the same thing, and then you can keep running them around the map.
And also stylistically, this is where Ryu is more comfortable. He transitions to side lanes faster than pretty much any other mid laner in the North American LCS. So that's something Laud wasn't necessarily ready for. He had been missing off the map for a while, and he surprises Laud down bottom.
Kane looking for Arrow, looking for all that damage.
Woo. Redemption comes down just to make sure. Arrow's still healthy enough, but man, those Twin Fangs just got to be so careful. If Arrow's even out of position for an extra second, King can take him down.
That's a deceptive amount of damage. And Cassiopeia does so much if she hits a Q on you and can chase you down.
Abyssal Scepter 2 completed means that it's just going to be doing that much more damage. It's got the AP, it's got the magic resistance to deal with the Syndra as well. We're actually starting to hit that point where you will see more items coming online as the Blade of the Ruined King is done for the Ashe, Morello Namicon for the Syndra. And of course, you saw the redemption for the Ivern.
Yeah, this will potentially be the cost of all the laning tomfoolery Phoenix One has been pulling off, is if this first turret falls. Game's still relatively close, they're keeping it there. The 1,000 gold injection can help break it open for Team Dignitas if they get it.
And right now we're seeing a difference in terms of jungle position. Chaser's on the bottom side of the map, threatening that low turret. Inori's top side going for the blue buff to try and take that away. And he'll have a good idea of where Chaser is now because he's not on this top side at all.
Yeah, I do think it's a little interesting that Kane has gone tier to Abyssal Scepter. A lot of times you will see the Negatron Cloak sat on with the Lost Chapter for even more mana on Cassiopeia with Wish to Spam. And with the blue buffs being denied by Keen, that could potentially bite him and swing that lane back in Ryu's favor, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's interesting because it might be a Chaser synergy as well for some extra magic damage when the Nidalee jumps in for a gank. But these are just small things. You definitely want all of that mana you're talking about from the Lost Chapter. The resets on kills, too. You get some extra mana in there. And Inori's run down to the bottom side. The guy bought Mobility Boots first item to just run around the map and get to these places faster.
Being as much of a support as he can be in that jungle role this game with the redemption, with the mobility boots. I mean, that's generally the plan on Ivern. Get all the support items, just make it so it's impossibly difficult to kill your teammates between the shields and the heals and the trigger seeds and Daisy. Someday getting himself grabbed by Zig, but I don't really see that fight going a whole lot of anywhere. Drake is live for the second time this game, though. Although it is Cloud, so priority is going to be less than it was first time around.
Yeah, here comes Ryu roaming down from the mid lane. He'll find a control board. If he actually went through there, he actually just went for a fake right there that he was possibly roaming. And there's this stat internally that's nicknamed the Ryu stat, and it's how much time in the first 15 minutes you spend past the halfway point, past the river. And Ryu is #1 for all mid laners. When he was in Europe, #1 for all mid laners. This split at 26% of his first 15 minutes he spends on the enemy's side of the map because he's just so pushed up. He likes the option to roam. It might get him killed or ganked, but it usually makes it so that he can roam to side lanes much faster than the enemy mid laner.
Toss with a 2,000 gold lead, but playing things very patiently. Like we mentioned with Phoenix One, sort of trying to force things, make things happen when they might not be ready to happen. Dignitas, despite the fact that they're ahead, seems comfortable allowing the game to just continue until they find that window.
Yeah, and the setup around the Drake will actually be fairly important because this is an opportunity for Phoenix One to actually get the picks. Even though Team Dignitas has a gold lead and would theoretically win in a heads-up 5v5, if they don't have vision control, Phoenix One have all the tools to catch odd-numbered fights, and that's why they're proactively going around to set up on this Cloud Drake.
Yeah, if you don't have established vision ahead of time, your support has to walk up, but he can't walk up alone, and then you don't know if they're even doing it, and you can get picked.
And this is a little bit strange because Inori smoked Raptors and is now doing Cloud Drake Smiteless. The thing with Ivern, though, is the brush still hides epic monsters, so it's still ridiculously difficult to steal. And Team Dignitas has not set up the vision control in the river and have actually kind of lost control of this game a little bit. So gold lead be damned, Phoenix 1 has control.
Phoenix 1 taking the Drake, no contest. Chaser doesn't get himself in there in time to even toss a spear, try to go for a steal. Movement speed going the way of Phoenix 1. Nori hanging around mid lane, just making sure everything's going to be okay there for Ryu, who has to pop his ghost. Chaser flings out a spear, but won't find anything with that one. Just kind of going fishing. Meanwhile, Stunt and Arrow in the bottom lane. Still down about 20 CS, but that hasn't worsened much in time. Plus, Blade of the Ruined King up. The Ashe still a threat.
Yeah, but it's an 1,100 gold lead for Laud, and he's going towards that Trinity Force. He almost has that completed. That's an enormous spike as well, where he already has the Muramana on top of it.
Uh-oh. Ryu nearly killed off there. A stun just in time to keep Keen away from grabbing that kill.
Yeah, Keen went all in there. Went for a flash, too, to try to make a play.
Look at that redemption coming from the jungle into the bottom lane. Have to note that Arrow did shoot ultimate at X Special and burned the flash from X Special, which is why Team Dignitas is trying to make an aggressive play in this bottom lane. And this is what they've needed to do for the past 7 minutes. When they had that gold lead in the bottom lane on Ezreal and as a poke composition, they need to set up shop outside of turrets and start demolishing some of these turrets. The fact that they've had this lead and first turret has still been up is Team Dignitas not pressing their lead.
Yeah, Laud can actually just walk up with the Sheen and get some auto attacks, but they're so scared of doing this.
Can't push past Ivern right now. He's hiding everything in brush, and now the Daisy to knock it up X Special.
Wild Growth has to be used, just keeping X Special alive here.
Ryu's gonna get here first.
Forward, able to find a binding. Ryu working their way into the fight. Dignitas trying to get out of this one. Definitely going to be used. Chaser in some trouble. Killing spree for Ryu. Lot going to be locked down next. More damage coming through. See you later. Stun grabbing a kill. And that is 2 for Phoenix 1 and make it a turret 2.
And that's what Phoenix 1 wanted with this team composition. CC chains that are inescapable with numbers advantages.
Yeah, Keen backed, Ryu pushed, went down bottom, got there first, hit an amazing stun, and then just followed up, burst through the Shen shield, so he couldn't show up either. And now they're going to actually push for another turret here and try to get this one.
Yeah, at this point of the game, it accelerates, though, because since they sent 5 bottom and Team Dignitas didn't necessarily match, Someday continued to push top, Keen decided to push in mid, but none of those turrets have fell yet. Probably going to see the top side. Still a 2 turret to 1 advantage on top of the team fight win.
So close no matter how far. Dignitas will at least get this 1 turret like you just said, but having that bottom lane turret so low for so long and then giving away turret first blood to your opponents is such a defeat.
And Jat talked about it where this is what you should be doing as Dignitas, but this ends up being the siege is actually a bait here. They have a ward behind that Zig TPs to, and then they're able to engage.
Yeah, the trickiest thing here that turns it is actually the Ryu roam more than anything, because Keen was back in base as Team Dignitas was making this push, and when they were with the CS lead in all 3 lanes, they need to be able to apply that pressure equally so that every roam is felt and noticed. They did not notice Ryu coming down while they were pushed up, therefore they couldn't retreat fast enough.
And now they get a rotation to the top side. This will be an unanswered turret here after theirs went down on the top, so P1 up 3-1.
Yeah, really kicking into high gear after that move, and now the pick composition becomes that much more lethal, with the Ludens completed onto Ryu before real magic resist items have been completed on the squishier targets of Team Dignitas, which they just drove through the bottom lane.
And with that extra damage, there also comes extra defense. Locking to the Iron Solari for Inori. These redemption plus that together makes it that much more difficult to get the damage Dignitas needs to get onto these P1 players.
And these blue buffs for Ryu are just hilarious. He's getting it pretty much 100% uptime this game. It's just every single one. They're taking the enemy one, handing it to him, and giving their own all the time. They're actually going to save this bottom lane turret too.
Strength of having the Ivern on your team, so much incredible buff control. Making sure that you're securing your own, stealing the enemies. You're almost always going to be playing a buff down against that guy unless he's incredibly far behind. But speaking of far behind, Phoenix 1, a team that spent 10 minutes, 2,000 gold down, now has about a 1,000 gold lead. The massive swing that came from that play bottom lane has really put them in the driver's seat here.
Exactly, and now it's a matter of setting up shop with their poke and pick, but Zig can't get caught out like this. How well can Team Dignitas capitalize? It's Laud!
Laud's dead. Dignitas have lost their AD carry. The arrow's not going to be finding anyone, but the chain CC just does not stop Chaser, barely getting himself away. They continue trying to hunt down X Special. The Caller finds its way in, and they are grabbing the enemy support as well. The bot lane down, just going to be in some danger. Keen gets the kill through the poison. Dignitas seeing what else they can find as Phoenix 1 retreats. It's a 2-for-1 at the end of the day.
Ryu doesn't care if you're 1,000 gold up as an AD carry. He's going to destroy you. Lod has 4 deaths in this game. He started off on a really good foot, but the Syndra is making an AD carry 2017 all over again.
Yeah, his lead is gone as well.
Don't forget the flow.
He started 1-0-1 and has moved to 1-4-3. So we talk about 14 Dignitas to win. Their carries who get the gold need to be able to convert that gold into advantages, and that did not happen early on into this game. Lod and X Special, with the 1,500 gold combined lead between their AD and support, could never push through that turret, thanks to Phoenix 1's focus on stopping that. On top of that, they're turning it around, but this is now a quick Desperation Baron play.
A dig Baron, but this is going to be one of those good ones here.
Stunt's just meandering around. He's going to see it, but no one's in range
do anything in time. He's going to try and go for some kind of a miracle steal. Nope. Chaser's got the smite on lockdown, and Dignitas will take the 27-minute Baron.
Good call.
It's a fast reaction. Themselves in this game and in a very nice spot compared to where they were just a moment ago.
And they've been having some really great Baron calls. The execution around them hasn't been perfect, but that one right there, very clean, able to pick it up. And then Ryu.
Yeah, he had so many orbs stacked beforehand. He landed the W and the R, and I think he was level 15 or 16, but Lod without magic resistance on a low level falls right there.
Yeah, he was 15. Got himself a Hex Drinker immediately afterwards. Yep. Like, let's try to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Try to prevent the R insta-kill from Ryu, who's been doing just a great job of controlling this AD carry so far. 7-5 for P1 as they collect their 3rd Elemental Drake of the game. That's going to be 2 Clouds and an Infernal. Gold dead even between the squads. Dignitas still with Baron.
Something curious, I was just noticing, Inori hasn't upgraded his trinket. So he's keeping the long range red. I feel like there's no reason to do that. No. I feel like that's just nerfs.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason is you can sometimes scout a brush from a little bit further away, but you need to upgrade that thing after level 9, and he's definitely had the opportunity to.
Yeah, and this is actually not something that's uncommon with Inori. I remember him putting 2 points into Rek'Sai E, and even like, hold on,
for the pick. Dignitas getting themselves away just fine for now. Someday trying to find the opportunity to maybe look for a re-engage here as they push up with the Baron. They've got the poke. Daisy summoned up to just sort of body block some of these spears.
Keen in some trouble.
More stuns come through. The chain CC starts off, but the chain will not be completed. Zig now going to be jumped on. Someday getting himself back. Phoenix 1 goes right back in for even more. Someday and Zig, though, both incredibly tanky as Ryu's down below half HP, still has ultimate up.
Yeah, and the actual 5v5 still get a little sketchy for Phoenix 1, especially when they're trying to go in. You can see how difficult it is to break through these Team Dignitas shields, who are now pushing back at him 5v5.
Daisy's still trying to defend this, but he's going to be going down. She's going to be going down. That thing is gone, whatever it is. The health bar evaporates, and the Dignitas push continues. This Baron buff doing a lot of work for these guys. Along with that Shen Spirit's Refuge, you're seeing what Someday is getting from that.
Yeah, it's a super good Baron call because we talk about how this team wants to siege. They absolutely want this Baron buff. And they even have the option later on that if they get it again, Someday can split push in a side lane with his double global. So this team really wants that buff. And when they got it off of that, they just get this turret in the mid lane. I think I control, too, of the jungle, and they'll take it on their way out.
Had to run a little bit because they did not have the time to finish off blue, but it still goes to show that this game is far from over. Phoenix 1 had taken back some of the objectives. The Baron take by Team Dignitas equalized the gold, allowed them to come right back in there, and now it will still be about whether or not they can avoid getting picked off with odd numbers, because if they have everyone there for a 5v5 initiation from Phoenix 1, they can probably withstand it.
You can see a little bit of itemization differences coming out between the AD carries now as Last Whisper picked up the Lod, realizing he's going to have to punch through Zig. Needs to make sure that he can do that in a semi-efficient manner. Runan's Hurricane for Arrow with a quick Silver Sash to get out of some of the big CC potential from both Someday and Keen.
Yeah, and Arrow looks like he's also going for 3rd item, Black Cleaver, Nash build that you constantly stack up the armor penetration, and when you use the Q, the Ranger's Focus, it's actually a stack per little tick of Ranger's Focus. So you actually put about 5 stacks on somebody every hit.
Very, very effective, especially with that Runan's Hurricane. You can shred the armor of multiple targets multiple times and at a time.
Yeah. And Banner of Command here too. 4 top lanes, so Zig is the one that has that.
Yeah, Lod's still going to be able to pick that through a pretty ineffectual first shot of the Banner. It's not a terrible Nautilus item, though. It gives you a little bit of CDR as well as just base stats, so the extra minion can just be icing on the cake occasionally.
Just a bit unorthodox, that's all.
I think it's mainly because they already have a locket, so if Zig is used to building an Aegis type item in his Nautilus builds, it's actually not bad to throw the banner in there.
Yeah, you also have a way to kind of moderately answer split push from Someday. It's not that great, but it's still something that at least shoves waves out if you're getting the split push. Because Zig also 2 levels down on Someday, who's been doing a great job with the double globals of still being up in CS and just kind of bullying these lanes.
Someday doing a good job for his team so far, being that front line. The Spirit's Refuge, like we mentioned, was something that enabled them to push, take those turrets down, just make it so that they couldn't answer him on the side of Phoenix One. And when you look at what Phoenix One has, we were kind of talking about this during Champion Select. The CC is there, but the damage is the question. I mean, you've seen Ryu delete Lod from the fights, but in terms of taking out somebody like Someday, it's a hell of a chore.
Exactly, and that's one dangerous game Someday is going to have to play here, because right now, he is pretty much the unkillable frontline. There is no armor penetration from Arrow. Ryu is burst heavy and does not have enough burst to kill Someday. So if Someday's sitting in front, Phoenix One can't really have a full team fight. But as a Shen, you want to be pressuring the side lanes so that your team is just not getting overall out-pressured. So he's got to be very careful, at least the other 4 have to be very careful, to not get picked off while Someday is away.
Absolutely.
Or for Someday to get picked off while his team is away.
Zig looking for Someday here as more reinforcements are on the way from Phoenix One, but they decide to back away immediately, realizing they're not going to get him in time.
Looking for a pick here. Keen will be the first one to show. But,
oh, there with the trigger seed. Can he set up the shot?
Keen has cleanse though, so
yeah,
even if they ran at him.
Yeah.
That was not a good ultimate try there from Phoenix One. The last time they Ash Arrowed, they did burn Cleanse and Flash, and that's what prompted the fight afterwards, because they thought they'd be able to kill him when he's lacking summoner spells. But this time, Arrow in the front line landing the Ash Arrow with no follow-up is not even going to burn the Cleanse. Props to Keen for not using Cleanse on that Ash Arrow.
I feel like this game becomes scarier and scarier for Phoenix One as it goes on, because Keen is going to get incredibly scary. I think that this guy right now is in a great position in this game. He's not in Ryu's position where he has all of his burst, but the late game Cassiopeia is a gigantic threat. They've been blowing up Lod and then trying to deal with Keen afterwards, and that seems to be the game plan that they'll try to continue to go with. But Keen, see if he stays alive, because if his positioning's on point, he will make and break these fights.
Good job from Phoenix One, making sure that they grab that 5th turret of the match, the second tier 2 they've managed to take down. Only 1 turret left standing for Team Dignitas outside of their base. And usually to crack those base turrets, you know that you've got to get some kind of a Baron or some kind of a big team fight, or practically impossible to brute force him down. Zig making his way back towards the bottom lane to deal with the Someday split push. Teleport available for both these top laners as Ryu pressures onto the in-hit turret.
Yeah, nobody's here to answer Ryu, so he'll actually get a decent amount of HP here.
Yeah, it's interesting. Team Dignitas is prioritizing getting this Mountain Drake for pressure around Baron, which tells me they are committing to kind of face-checking in here, and this is the most dangerous point they've had yet in the game. Phoenix One, I feel like after they see that Mountain Drake go down, would want to get vision immediately, but it looks like they're out of control wards, so they can't get the appropriate amount of setup. They're recalling to pick them up again, and Team Dignitas gets that Mountain Drake unpunished.
Yeah, also Arrow able to complete the Black Cleaver, so wanted to back before a team fight so that he has that crucial penetration item.
And that's huge, since they need to be able to have some way of cutting through Someday. Remember, their damage is very low overall in comparison to the sustained damage they're going to be able to get out of Cassiopeia and Ezreal.
Baron aggroed by Ryu there to make sure that it gets just a little bit extra onto Someday, but between his own shields and the shields from the special, it just doesn't even hurt him at all. We're actually starting to see a few different players hit those massive item points where they've only got a little bit left to complete. 4 different items completed onto Keen's Cassiopeia. Very scary in these fights. The Mortal Reminder fully done for Lod. Not only going to be penetrating the armor, but stopping some of the healing as well. Arrow always going to be looking for those arrows. That time you do pop the cleanse. That time he has to go.
Yeah, and even that arrow was while Ryu was getting a blue buff, so it's almost like that arrow was just there to proc the cleanse.
Yeah.
Zig may look to get a different type of pick onto Keen now.
And the fact that Arrow has the Black Cleaver means that the arrow will come off down faster, but this is going so quickly here. They have to go now.
Here we go. Dignitas starting up the Baron down to 1/3 HP. Into the fight goes Daisy. P1 trying to make their attack right here. Special going to be taken low. Blue team is slain Baron Nashor. That's going to be Chaser. Dignitas grabs their objective. What else can they find? Someday going to be losing the Guardian Angel. Phoenix 1 still looking to fight more if they can. They can't let Dignitas get away from this one for free.
Keen went over the wall.
Low, flashing over the wall. Someday trying to get himself out as Special is the only casualty so far.
Everybody scatter is the call for
Run
Team
away.
Dignitas.
Keen flashed over the wall to avoid stunt flashing forward, but then he also had the Shen ultimate on him, which means that your front line is actually abandoning you.
Your front
and that
line
leaves
is now
Successful
going away
to die.
too.
Yeah, and that setup was less than ideal by Team Dignitas, but it definitely worked out because Chaser won the Smite War over Inori right there. Only suffer 1 casualty and no turrets while getting the Baron.
That Smite outcome was just absolutely massive. Getting the Baron and losing your support, that feels great. Losing a Baron and your support, that's a throw.
Not to mention the extended fight they had afterwards. They're empowered by the attack damage and the ability power from the Hand of Baron buff. But watching this, I mean, that Baron was at 4,000 health when Phoenix 1 was approaching, but they still make a call to burst it, which then lowers their team fight potency even more. This is how strong and how hard it was to take down Someday.
Yeah, and Ryu actually blows the ultimate to kill Someday. Keen is off on the right side, being basically just held by Zig. Also, Inori's focusing him down, trying to keep that Cassiopeia locked up. And so the target selection there from P1 also seemed a little bit frantic, where there were 2 people who were definitely in the pit and very vulnerable.
All right, boys. Dignitas Baron up and running for the second, well, no second time now. Seeing what they can find.
Knight's Vow from Inori onto Arrow, so he'll be taking some of his damage now too. There's the Arrow.
Oh, Keen! He's got no way out. This time he's going to be in some trouble. Wild Growth comes down. Spirit's Refuge trying to defend. He's not going to be doing anything with that one. P1 looking to make more happen if they can. Zig lumbering forward. Wants to chase these guys down, but Phoenix 1 have their chance.
Yeah, try again. They finally get the CC chain kill onto Keen when his flash and his cleanse were down, as well as being able to not have Someday tanking in the front line since the turret was preventing him from flying forward.
Exactly. They actually knew where he was too. Arrow off on the side got hit by a spear right before, throws out the arrow and it's slightly masked, and then it hits Keen, and then they're able to just follow up. They have to chase him a little bit, but even through everything.
Big wave top side, inhibitor turret breaks, and Phoenix 1 is onto the inhibitor itself. Blade of the Ruined King gonna be used Someday. Not exactly feeling super tanky anymore against that Ashe.
Yeah, Last Whisper and Black Cleaver is a tremendous amount of shred from Arrow, as well as the quick stacking from Black Cleaver we talked about earlier. Phoenix 1 successfully make the proactive play against the Team Dignitas Baron, pretty much equalizing that buff entirely.
Dignitas has Baron, and they lose the first inhibitor of the game 39 minutes in. Not what they wanted to accomplish with that buff. The Baron power play final tally is going to be very interesting because it's going to be very disappointing if you're a Dignitas fan.
Yeah, Keen, who had previously used his flash to get over the wall, was the big target there, and he had been playing really well throughout the game until that moment where he was a little bit too far forward. That cost them that inhibitor and that positioning.
There's the banner coming in.
Yeah, the banner's going to be really hard to deal with the Cassiopeia.
It's a slight nuisance.
Just a little bit. Cassiopeia's still got some auto attacks.
Yeah. Elder Dragon up in 55 seconds, though.
Very juicy for P1. Dignitas, still a decent buff for them, but also very concerned about keeping it out of Phoenix 1 hands.
Yeah, and if we're looking about who needs to step up to carry this game, it's Keen right now. He has a large amount of farm. The Knight's Vow has been completed on Someday. I hope that gets thrown on Keen to give him that little bit of extra durability. The shield stacking that he can get is pretty immense between the Lulu, the Shen, as well as his Seraph's Embrace. And Phoenix 1 doesn't necessarily have the best access to him to try and run through the fight. So it's not going to be Laud. He's fallen pretty far behind in this one. Still hasn't completed Blade of the Ruined King for that tank killing ability. It's got to be Keen.
Baron power play, negative 129 gold for Dignitas, showing that it didn't work out too well for this team. Now with Baron down for the next few minutes, they've got to find some way to make something happen without it, or just wait it out. Nice spear onto Arrow, but not going to be followed up with anything yet immediately. Zig walking himself back. True Shot Barrage going to be coming through. Redemption comes down. Keen's going to be in some trouble. Glenn's not going to be getting him out
all
of
the shields
immediately, but Stun's going to be stunned up. Chase is able to grab 1 kill. Zig's going to be going down next. The damage coming out from Ryu is not enough, and Phoenix 1 is in full retreat.
But they only get the 1 kill as they can't chase too far through. But you got to see the thousands of health of shields that flew onto Keen as they tried to engage on him. And the 1 kill they're able to get before this potential Elder Drake, but boy, they have to get back to their base. They need to reset.
Yeah, Stunt didn't even get to blow his ultimate there. He was trying to walk up and just got CC'd, and they're losing their base.
Minions, baby. Taking down Nexus turret number 1.
Oh, wow, P1's on this fast.
As Nori and Arrow are saying, hey, you know what? They got to answer the base. Why don't we just look to take this down instead? Zig goes over the wall. TP's going to be used. This is going to be a big fight.
Elder Drake is hidden right now until they can get a ward inside of it, but they pull away because they need to reset from the fight still. This is the game.
Rushes are still there. Oh, this fight is going to be all over the place, gentlemen. Everybody dancing around.
Yep, they're waiting for Stunt. They're buying time for Stunt. They're not actually doing any damage to this right now and just holding off, waiting for a pick.
They're also waiting for the super minions to reaccrue onto the Nexus turrets. There's only one Nexus turret there, so Team Dignitas has to go now.
Dignitas moving, but Stunt has made his way into the fight. Zig wants the dredge line onto anyone that's not named Someday. Daisy has been brought back into the fight now as well. Dignitas keeping their distance. Elder Drake continuing to auto-attack.
Where's this arrow going to come from Arrow? If it hits Keen, it'll lock him up.
If you're Phoenix 1, you actually fully disengage. You want the Elder Drake to reset because your super minions will kill a turret. That's why Team Dignitas is going back in.
Oh, Phoenix 1 still looking to try to fight this one. Arrow comes up the wall, not going to be finding its way onto lava. They're able to find the Rampage onto the enemy jungler. The Dragon is secured by Someday of all people, but the kill comes down onto Keen. Someday going to be going down next. Blood trying to snipe out Phoenix 1 players. He gets the kill into the AD carry, but he will fall regardless. Special and Someday now fighting the enemy top lane and jungle combination.
Back fast right here.
A wet noodle war as Special keeps himself alive. More redemption's coming out. This is never gonna end, Irene. It's never gonna stop yet.
It's the two OG P1 members trying to fight Elder Dragon up Dignitas, guys.
Zig and Nori chasing him down. Lulu's not getting away today.
Daisy's up.
Daisy again into the fight. The blast cone to try to get Someday away from this one. Are the roots gonna be called? Nope. Okay, yep, he got it. All right. Continue hitting it for 30 damage.
I imagine they're trying to stop him from getting back to base. Since look at the minion wave that's killing the mid lane turret right now that they're trying to ask for assistance on. What a ridiculous series of events.
Yeah, and now they have to clear out their base on Dignitas' side. That middle turret looks like it's going to go down. It is, and this inhibitor has pressure on it. Baron on the table. Every member of P1 is up, Special not for 20 seconds.
Yeah, and also Baron is up right now while Special is dead, which is why Phoenix 1 should have probably tried to reset that one a little bit sooner. You see Nori's not the first one to the pit. He should be, based on what happened in that. He just capped his build out with an Ardent Sensor as well. So I'd love to watch that replay again and dissect it, but we don't have time because they need to immediately go towards
back
Baron.
into the fight.
And these fights take like 7 minutes to play out because they're all tanks slapping each other.
You see, like, Special with 2,000. That's not from the beginning of it.
5,500 damage. Someday did the most damage in the fight as a shed.
But here we go. They're pressuring the Baron, having vision denial. If they can get a control ward inside that as well, it's almost impossible to get vision.
Baron down to half.
I like this too. This goes back to Champions. Like, they took the Ashe
Don't
and
hit
the
the board.
Ivern so that you can't check this with a hawk shot or anything.
Someday on the front line, totally
And
fearless.
Keen!
Arrow onto Keen, who cleanses it away, but now that's not available.
That's huge. Zig has ultimate. He presses that on
Zig
the
goes
key.
in, he goes fishing, and he finds himself one. Now the attack continues. Special gonna be stunned up. Miasma comes through. Phoenix 1 back themselves away. Baron gonna be resetting, healing up.
Mid.
Is
P1
mid
want
the
to call.
clearance?
They want to clear it so that they have pressure on an inhibitor here, and that will force Dig members to take a long route around, and somebody will have to go here. It looks like it's Someday, so it won't actually be too much pressure.
Every moment in this game could be the one that decides who walks away with the win. Goes up on the 1-0 advantage in the best of 5. Phoenix 1 backing away.
Yeah, and things like the Ash Arrow cool down faster than the cleanse on Keen. Keen additionally is getting very close to that Rabadon's death cap, which will really push up his damage and may push them over the edge in these fights. But as we saw, it's razor thin.
Yeah, it's a 24-second cooldown on the Ash Arrow. It's a 210 on the cleanse for Keen. And it might be interesting if he ends up going for something like a QSS instead of a Rabadon's. Well, sorry, after the Rabadon's, instead of the control wards.
Mikhail's being completed, though, actually.
Yeah, that's actually good.
Makes it so his cleanse being off cooldown makes it even easier to save him.
Makes it harder to pick, much harder to pick.
Going back to what we were talking about nerves earlier, gentlemen, 46 minutes into the game when one mistake could mean the game. Nerves could be big. Someday going in, Spear coming out, Arrow having to make sure he's safe. Someday eating a lot of damage here, though. Wild growth to keep him alive. Guardian Angel not available.
Yeah, Arrow aggressively positioned right there. Lots of faith in his positioning, as well as the shields he can get from full build Ivern right now, who's doing a lot of protection.
QSS also off cooldown. So if Arrow does find himself stunned up, he can utilize that to get out of trouble a little bit.
Yeah, with the minion wave bottom, they know that's going to push in, so they're going to go.
They might do this faster than they can arrive. Well, actually, it'll be right in time. Chaser is there.
Don't kill it that fast.
Someday's going to have to stand united into this fight. Chaser has the shield. Wants to potentially go in. Baron's going to be disengaged on Phoenix 1, backing themselves away. Arrow with limited mana.
She's going to take
2/3 HP as well. Redemption coming down. Dignitas in the Baron's hit. Looking to maybe steal this one away if they can. Someday going to be soaking the auto attacks. Sig now in there too. Redemption coming down to the other side. Chaser's going to be killed. And Someday might just be number 2. Phoenix 1. Look at him. Even more moves. Keen is gone. 3 dead on Dig. Phoenix 1. Can they make it 4? Lod now going to be bursted next. Special hook right back into the fight. Barely giving himself alive. He drops. Lod's got to try to get himself away here, but there you go.
And Team Dignitas move in to try and disrupt the Phoenix 1 Baron. Instead of resetting the fight, they engage again on the Baron, and that's going to cost him the game.
Patience makes perfect sometimes.
And Ryu with the perfect setup there, throws down, kills Keen in a combo, and then that's going to be game.
Phoenix 1, it took a while for them to get here. The start of the game was a little bit rocky, but they will go up 1-0 to kick off this best of 5.
And this is so close. The game ends with Dignitas still up 400 gold.
Yeah, we talked about needing to step up and the pressure of the playoffs and how will these players recover. We got to see a lot of that in this first game. Lod started the game very well, was ineffectual in the late game team fights. On the other side, you got to see Honori and Stunt have some pretty bad starts, but pretty strong finishes there on a 3-1-13 Ivern performance, with the game centering around those objectives with which Ivern can control.
And we talked about the potential of the redemption story for the Ivern on Honori. Talked about how the last time he played it, it wasn't that great of a pick. It didn't work out for him. 3-1-13, keeping the team alive, providing extra CC in that chain. He did his job.
Yeah, he has 16 out of the 18 in terms of kill participation. They're highest on the team. Honori actually did a lot of work on that Ivern. As the Ivern expert,
yeah.
What grade would you give him?
Yeah.
What's he get?
We don't have the system right here.
Wait, you're the
3-1-13
system.
with low CS gives him like an A-, generally
A-.
speaking. That's the way the system works.
Support life.
Ooh.
Unlucky, dude.
A 47-minute game, you need like 40 assists to get an S. That's the way it works.
Well, this is the JAT system. You're allowed to fix those oversights.
No, I'm just by the book.
Well, either way,
so close.
Either way, it was a great win from Phoenix 1. And for more on it, we're going to go ahead and toss things over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We thought it was going to be a close series. Game 1 definitely points to it following that trend. Only 400 gold separating these teams when the Nexus actually explodes. But I want to start from the beginning because we kind of prepped it with some thoughts about how this series might play out. And in particular, champ select-wise, I want to look at the Ivern pick from Honori because this completely contradicts the play style that we've seen out of him for almost the entirety of his LCS career.
So yeah, this isn't the specific pick I was expecting. I was expecting Phoenix 1 to actually bring some new picks because they talked about part of the decision-making for the subs that they chose were due to champions that they played in the upcoming week or weeks leading up to this. I did not expect them to do an Honori Ivern, and even though they did and they definitely have practiced it, it looked like this is something they had success on because they put 3 bans all into jungle, and Dignitas also put 2, so there was a total of 5 jungle bans, and they were pretty ready to go with the Ivern. There were still a lot of little things that you would point to and be like, okay, he still has some more to work on, but as far as going for the supportive jungler, if they talked about learning from Meteos and trying to be more of a team player, Ivern is a champion that makes you be a team player jungler. You can't steal buffs, and you also can't steal lane farm because you can't CS.
And Skara, if you've got Arrow on your team, you want to be picking up Ivern to support him in that mid to late game when you know he'll go off, right?
Right. I mean, just look at his build. He went Knight's Vow into Ardent Censor, Grail. Like, usually you'll go like maybe half or maybe like 3/4 of that build, but he went into the Censor, which makes him really squishy as a champion, which is why it was really good of them to have Nautilus to make sure that they can keep that buff, like tanky frontline, while having a more utility-oriented support rather than like a kind of tanky frontline Ivern.
Right, a lot of resources going into helping Arrow carry in the late game. Of course, the early game for the bot lane of Phoenix 1, though, didn't go entirely well. We were looking at this 2v2 saying this might be the exploitable part of Phoenix 1 here in the early game.
This play right here, we were all just like, Stunt, what? Even the flash, he could have easily flashed it. You can try and dodge backwards, maybe like like, yeah, the dodge backwards would be too risky, but the
There's absolutely no
full range
excuse.
mid-spear,
No excuse to not
will flash up, yeah.
And honestly, Stun was a hook, like a magnet for skill shots this game. Like even going into the mid-late game when they were sieging top lane, he got hit with so much poke. Like I felt really bad because it just felt like he walked into them sometimes.
Right, so 2 kills go over there in the first gank down to the bot lane from Dignitas. Now Phoenix 1, to a degree, starts forcing plays back in the bot lane against the Shen team.
And I think this is just such a standard mistake, right? If you're playing against Shen, you gank the Shen lane or you gank the mid lane Syndra, which probably has enough burst to one-hit the other person instantly. And I think that going bot lane is really tough.
Yeah, this at that point, it was looking very poor for Phoenix 1 and good for Team Dignitas. They were creating a lot of the wins off bottom side, but man, even though they didn't gank for Ryu, he created his own wins for Phoenix 1 in the mid game. He was roaming around, picking up kills. Like, Ryu saved this game for them.
Honestly, Ryu had a great game. This is one of the best games I've seen him play, period. And that's super weird that they needed their mid laner to have a standout performance for them to win this game. Like, I'm a little bit worried, to be honest, because they shouldn't expect Ryu to have to, like, all right, roam to kill the jungler, roam bot lane, and then solo kill the AD when he pushes up, and then, like, also go, like, and like control his wave and teamfight really well. Like just look at the last teamfight. Like I think that Ryu played outstanding. I'm hoping they don't need him to play at this level to win.
Yeah, Ryu getting Phoenix 1 back into the game, and of course this is in the face of Laud, who has built a 34 CS lead at 15 minutes. That's equivalent to 1,500 gold is what he was sitting on over Era. So again, in that 2v2, Dignitas definitely coming out on top with their focus towards the bot lane. Now the thing is, we didn't see them push turrets down with the use of the Nidalee very early, and I think criticism we could throw there is that they didn't push their advantage as much as they should have here against a struggling P1 in the early game.
I think Chaser just killed himself too many times. Like he ran to the bottom side jungle, and it was just over-aggression, right? He wants to deny Ivern as much as he can, but how could he expect Ryu to be there? Like, he collapsed so quickly. He actually ghosted, almost instantly flashed to collapse to get the kill at level 5, and I think that really, like, neutered their ability to make plays, because usually you want the mid laner to roam bot lane as well, but Ryu was actually such a big threat that it was hard for them to get even the initial roam off.
Yeah, Ryu saves them in the early game. His team fighting late game was also really good. And then Arrow had some really clutch picks for them as well in the late game to really cement their victory. Man, those two players are the two guys that we did expect to carry this team kind of, though. So
let's take a look at our final replay here. This is in the bot lane, roam from Ryu as well as Zig. So again, focus towards the bot lane from Phoenix 1, but this time they decided to bring all 5 members, so it doesn't matter if Shen tries to join.
Yeah, and this is great. Like, you look at the mini-map. Ryu is on his way. Cassio just back. And then the top lane TP, Ryu comes into the collapse, and this cleans up into first tower and resets, like, kind of the bot lane deficit for them.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
All members committing here. Stunt had a pretty good flash forward there for the roots, and it was actually all started off with Ivern. And the Daisy, no respect for Daisy here at the turret defense, allowed Daisy to stack up the autos to get the knockup off.
Again, that gold graph, not something you're going to be happy with if you're sitting on Dignitas' side of the rift. Just at that 20-minute mark, sitting with a nice, 2.5K gold lead with that, with the Nidalee, the ability to kind of push turrets and maybe take them down, you're going to be unhappy with the fact that you handed back that big fight in the bot lane. Important to note, though, both teams opting for no subs here going into game 2. Dignitas has also chosen the red side, so we will be flopping sides here. Thoughts going into game 2 about how Dignitas might respond to the loss, because for all intents and purposes, they were winning 90% of that game.
Even though I like reamed Dignitas a little bit for, like, jungle decision making, getting picked, and like all that stuff, I think that their game plan was smart. It was like, okay, let's pressure bot lane, abuse stunt, which seems like not to play super well with the bot lane, and get a lead there and break first tower there. It's just that they weren't able to execute like the tail end of that comment.
Yeah, and I have liked Chaser a lot recently. It's just that maybe a different jungle pick, or maybe they don't feed into the extra jungle bans coming through and get him on something like Elise, where he had a lot of success. I think that Chaser can bounce back in game 2.
I think Nidalee is a super high execution-based jungler. Lyra, which is probably the best jungler in the league, only makes Nidalee work like 60–70% of the time. That's a champion that has no CC. It's all poke damage. I would like to see a different jungler. Like, again, if it's Elise, she could set up the plays a lot easier. They don't have to hope for like a perfect 5-man dive or 4-man dive to be able to break open the early game.
Game 1 was close, but Phoenix 1 comes away with it. We're headed for a break, but when we come back, we've got game 2 coming your way. When we return, see if Team Dignitas can bounce back against Phoenix 1.
There's an attention bot. Stun. Got hit.
Bear stuck. Gonna be in some trouble here. Flashing away. The damage comes through.
Okay, nice.
They cancel.
Okay, fine.
Shield 3.
I go. Fine.
They can TP.
Nice, back. First.
Italy.
Hey, back. Okay, guys, good job.
The dragon is secured by Someday of all people, but the kill comes down onto Keen. Someday gonna be going down next. Blood trying to snipe out Phoenix 1 players. He gets the kill into the AD carry, but he will fall regardless.
Go. RGA. Okay, we can end.
Ezreal. Alright.
Ezreal dead. Oh, almost not dead. Hey, we can end still.
We can
I'm gonna TP. I'll TP bot. Alright, I'll TP. Good job, guys. It's a fucking game, guys. Where should I TP?